The word narcissist is everywhere these days. It's in the headlines, on social media, in our conversations about toxic relationships, and most of the time, it's used like a weapon. He's such a narcissist. She's so full of herself. But here's the truth nobody tells you. Narcissism isn't just about those people out there. Jung believed it lives inside all of us. Think about it. Have you ever felt that restless craving for recognition? That ache for someone to notice you, admire you, love you in a way that finally makes you feel complete? That's narcissism. And before you reject it, Jung would say that hunger is not a flaw. It's a stage, a necessary step in the evolution of the self. The danger isn't that we have narcissism. The danger is getting stuck there. Because when you're trapped in it, no amount of love, success, or validation ever feels like enough. But if you can understand it, if you can face the shadow beneath it, narcissism becomes a doorway to real self-love and to becoming who you truly are. And that's the paradox Jung reveals. Narcissism isn't just the poison. It can also be the cure. When you live with or love someone who is deeply narcissistic, you feel it in your bones. It's not just what they say or do. It's the energy, the constant pull. One moment you're lifted up, the next you're pushed down. It's as if your sense of worth is tied to their mood, their approval, their gaze. Jung would say this isn't random. What you're experiencing is their persona, the mask they wear to survive. The persona is how they want the world to see them: powerful, beautiful, successful, untouchable. It's the role they play, and they play it well. But behind that mask, something very different is going on. Because no mask is complete. The more someone hides behind an image, the more their hidden side, the shadow, presses against it. And in narcissism, that shadow is often filled with shame, insecurity, and a deep terror of being unworthy. Here's the painful irony. The person who looks like they love themselves the most is often the one who secretly feels the least lovable. That's why the mask has to be so strong. Without it, they fear they would collapse. But if you're close to them, you don't just see the mask, you also get hit by the shadow. You feel the coldness, the criticism, the emptiness that seeps through when the mask slips. Maybe you've experienced this in a relationship. At first, they admired you endlessly. You're perfect. You're the one I've been waiting for. You felt more seen than ever before. But later, sometimes suddenly, the tone shifted. Now they tell you, you're selfish. You're not enough. You've disappointed me. You go from idealized to devalued in the blink of an eye. Or maybe it's apparent. In public, they beam with pride, showing you off as their success story. But at home, nothing you do is ever good enough. The praise and the criticism are two sides of the same coin. Or maybe it's a boss. In meetings, they dominate the room, full of confidence. But one-on-one, if you challenge them, the mask cracks. They lash out, belittle you, or freeze you out. Because deep down, they cannot bear the thought of being wrong. Jung helps us see what's really happening here. The narcissist projects their shadow onto you. They cannot hold their own feelings of inadequacy, so they make you feel inadequate instead. They cannot face their own shame, so they shame you. They cannot tolerate their own neediness, so they call you needy. And if you're not aware of this, it's incredibly confusing. You start to wonder, is it me? Am I the problem? That's exactly how projection works. Their wound becomes your weight. But here's the clarity Jung offers. This dynamic is not proof that you are broken. It's proof that they are at war with their own shadow, and you have been pulled into the battlefield. If you've ever been close to a narcissist, you know how hard it is to break free. Even when friends tell you to leave, even when you know deep down that something isn't right, something in you keeps being pulled back. Why? Why is it so magnetic? Jung would say it's because narcissism plays directly with our deepest psychological patterns, especially projection. Projection is what happens when we see in others what we can't yet see in ourselves. And narcissists are masters at activating this. Think of the beginning of a relationship with a narcissist. The way they idealize you can feel intoxicating. Suddenly, you are beautiful, brilliant, extraordinary in their eyes. It feels like a spotlight has been turned on you. And in that glow, you don't just see their admiration, you see your own hidden potential reflected back. For a moment, you believe, maybe I really am all of that. But then, slowly, the light dims. The admiration turns into criticism. The same person who lifted you up now makes you doubt yourself. And here's where projection flips. Because now it's their shadow being projected onto you. Their fear of being unworthy becomes your constant self-questioning. Maybe you've lived this cycle. One day you feel chosen, adored, like you finally matter. The next day you feel invisible, unwanted, ashamed. It's a roller coaster that leaves you dizzy, but addicted. Because you keep chasing that first high, the moment they looked at you like you were everything. Jung would call this the dance of opposites, idealization and devaluation, light and shadow. And once you're caught in it, it's hard to step out. Because part of you hopes, if I can just do better, if I can just please them enough, maybe I'll get back to that beginning. But here's the painful truth. It's not about you. The cycle isn't proof that you failed. It's the narcissist's own inner war, between the mask they want to believe in and the shadow they can't face. You just happen to be the screen they projected onto. And still, it hooks us. Why? Because we all carry our own wounds. Maybe like many, you grew up longing to be seen more clearly, to be loved without conditions. When a narcissist shines that early spotlight on you, it feels like finally someone sees you. Finally, someone gives you what you were missing. That's why it's so powerful. And that's why, even when the cruelty starts, you stay. Because part of you is still hoping to get that love back. Jung would say this isn't weakness, it's human. We are wired to seek mirrors, to seek recognition. The danger comes when we confuse the mirror of the narcissist with truth, because their reflection is unstable. One day it makes you a star, the next day it makes you worthless. And if you tie your self-image to that mirror, you lose yourself. So how do you break free? The first step is this realization. What they reflect to you is not reality. It's projection. Their light is not proof you are perfect. Their shadow is not proof you are broken. Both belong to them. When you can see this, something shifts. You begin to separate their inner war from your worth. You begin to notice the pattern without drowning in it. And that's when you start to reclaim your power. One of the hardest things about being close to a narcissist is that you start to lose yourself. Little by little, their voice becomes your inner voice. Their criticism becomes your self-doubt. Their approval becomes your oxygen. And before you know it, you can't tell where you end and they begin. Jung would say that this happens because you've been caught in their projection field. You've become the screen on which they project both their perfection and their shame. And unless you step out of that field, you'll keep confusing their shadow with your truth. So how do you protect yourself? The first step is awareness. Begin to notice the cycle. Notice when the warmth suddenly turns to coldness. Notice when the praise flips into criticism. Instead of thinking, "What did I do wrong?" try asking, "Whose shadow is this? Does this really belong to me?" That simple shift can change everything, because the moment you recognize, this is their wound, not my worth, you stop carrying what isn't yours. The second step is boundaries, and I know that word gets thrown around a lot. But with narcissists, boundaries are not optional. They are survival. A narcissist will test you. They will push, manipulate, guilt trip, charm, or intimidate. And every time you give in, you teach them that your limits are flexible. Boundaries mean deciding, this behavior is not acceptable, and if it happens, I will step back. Not as punishment, but as protection. Here's an example. Imagine your partner constantly criticizes you, your looks, your choices, your feelings. Instead of arguing back, you can calmly say, I will not continue this conversation if it turns into insults. If it does, I'll walk away, and then you follow through. It's not about changing them, it's about protecting you. The third step is reclaiming your reflection. Remember, narcissists feed off your need to be seen. So start giving yourself what you've been chasing from them. This is where Jung's idea of self-reflection becomes powerful. He would say, instead of staring into their mirror, create your own. Try this practice. Every morning, write down 3 things you appreciate about yourself. Not what you achieved, not how you looked, but qualities. Maybe, I showed kindness. I stayed true to my values. I survived a hard day. When you do this regularly, you begin to build an inner mirror that can't be stolen from you. Another practice, pay attention to your body. Narcissists often pull you into endless arguments or emotional storms. Before you know it, hours have passed and you're drained. Start noticing the signals. The tight chest, the knot in your stomach, the racing thoughts. These are your body's way of saying, step out, protect your energy. When you feel it, give yourself permission to pause, breathe, and step away. The fourth step is support. Narcissistic dynamics thrive in isolation. The more alone you are, the easier it is to believe their version of reality. Talk to trusted friends. Write in a journal. Work with a therapist. Get your truth mirrored back by people who see you clearly. Jung himself often said that we find our wholeness not in isolation, but in connection. And finally, remember this. You cannot heal a narcissist. That's not your job. You didn't cause their wound, and you cannot cure it. What you can do is heal yourself. What you can do is step out of their shadow and back into your own light. This isn't easy. Setting boundaries, reclaiming your reflection, resisting the pull. It will feel unnatural at first. You may feel guilty, selfish, even afraid. But that's just the old pattern speaking. Every time you choose yourself, you weaken the hold. Every time you listen to your own inner voice instead of theirs, you come back to life. And that, Jung would say, is individuation in action. It's the journey of separating from the masks and projections of others and becoming who you truly are. So where does this leave us? If you've lived with a narcissist, a parent, a partner, a boss, even a friend, you know the pain it brings. You know the feeling of being pulled into their orbit, of walking on eggshells, of never quite feeling enough. You know the confusion of being praised one moment and cut down the next. And you may wonder, what was real? Was the love real? Was I ever truly seen? Jung would say the answer is complicated. Yes, there were moments of truth, because the mask of a narcissist always reflects something real. But the problem is, it never lasts. Because they're not at peace with themselves, they can't be at peace with you. But here's the hope. Jung believed that every wound contains the seed of growth. Narcissism may hurt you deeply, but it can also wake you up. It can force you to see where you've been giving your power away. It can push you to stop waiting for others to validate you and start giving that validation to yourself. Think about how this might play out. Imagine a daughter who grew up with a narcissistic father. He showed her off when it made him look good, but ignored or criticized her when she needed love. For years, she chases men who mirror the same pattern, charming at first, then cold and cruel, until one day she realizes, this isn't love. This is a replay of my childhood wound, and in that moment, she decides to break the cycle. That awakening, painful as it is individuation. Or picture someone in the workplace. Their boss takes credit for their ideas, praises them one day, and humiliates them the next. At first, they bend over backwards, trying to earn approval. But eventually, they begin to see, it's not me. This is their shadow, not my failure. And that realization gives them the strength to set boundaries, to leave, or to find a healthier environment. That, too, is individuation. This is how Jung would frame it. Narcissism can be a prison, but it can also be a teacher. It teaches you where you are still dependent on mirrors outside yourself. It shows you where you are hungry for approval, where you abandon yourself, where you mistake the mask of another for the truth of love. So what can you do now if you're listening and realizing this is your story? Let me leave you with a few practices. The first is reclaiming your mirror. Every day, write down one way you showed up for yourself. It doesn't matter if anyone else noticed. Maybe you spoke your truth. Maybe you rested when you were tired. Maybe you walked away from an argument instead of being pulled in. Write it down. This is how you begin to see yourself clearly again. The second is boundary rehearsal. Many of us know we need boundaries, but freeze in the moment. So practice in private. Stand in front of a mirror and say out loud, I will not accept being spoken to that way. Or, if this continues, I will step out. The more you rehearse, the easier it becomes to use your voice when it matters. The third is shadow compassion. Remember, the narcissist's cruelty is born from their own wound. That doesn't excuse it, but it helps you stop personalizing it. When they criticize you, remind yourself, this is their shame speaking, not my truth. That mental shift is like armor. It doesn't make the arrows stop, but it keeps them from piercing your heart. And the last is connection. Find safe people who see you clearly. Share your story. Let yourself be mirrored by those who value you as you are. Healing from narcissism happens not in isolation, but in relationships where authenticity is safe. Jung would also remind us that narcissism isn't only an individual problem, it's a collective one. We live in a culture that rewards masks. Think about it. Social media, advertising, even politics. Everywhere, people are performing an image. Everywhere, we are told, be more beautiful, more successful, more admired. Jung would say this obsession with image is the collective persona of our time. And just like with individuals, when a culture clings too tightly to its mask, the shadow grows. That's why we see such widespread loneliness, anxiety, and emptiness, even when on the surface we have more than ever before. When you understand this, you stop blaming yourself for being caught by a narcissist, because the truth is, the stage was already set. We are all swimming in a culture that confuses image with reality, performance with worth. Narcissists simply amplify what the culture already whispers. You are not enough until you shine. But Jung would say that whisper is a lie. Enoughness cannot come from applause. It can only come from wholeness. And wholeness begins when you dare to step out of the collective mirror and ask, who am I, really, when no one is watching? I want to invite you to try something right now. Take a deep breath. Think of one moment when you felt small in front of a narcissist, maybe a partner, a parent, or a boss. Picture the scene. Hear their words. Feel the way it landed in your body. Now ask yourself, what did I need in that moment? What did I long to say? What boundary did I wish I had set? Take a moment to let the answer surface. You may notice anger, or sadness, or a clear sentence rising inside you. That's your truth. That's the part of you that was silenced in that moment. Write it down later, because every time you give voice to the part that was shut down, you reclaim a piece of yourself. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of individuation. Healing is not about changing the narcissist. It's about gathering back the parts of yourself you abandoned in order to survive them. Now, does this mean the narcissist in your life will change? Maybe, but often not. Jung would say, individuation is a personal journey. Some people never take it. Some stay trapped in the hall of mirrors their whole life. You cannot walk their path for them. But you can walk yours. And here's the deeper truth. Sometimes the gift of being hurt by a narcissist is that it forces you to finally choose yourself, to stop chasing a love that will never be enough, and to discover the love that was always inside you. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And maybe, just maybe, the pain of narcissism can become the push that leads you there. So, if this spoke to you, if you recognized your story in these words, if you felt the sting, but also the hope, I want to invite you to keep going deeper. On this channel, Soul of the Mind, we explore Jung's wisdom for today's struggles, relationships, self-love, dreams, the shadow, individuation. Subscribe if you haven't already, and share your reflections.